And I was on my way to work, and I was stopped at a stoplight, and all of a sudden I heard a voice in my head say, pain is coming.
And this was before the lake house
This was
trip.
before the accident.
Yeah.
So I went home that night, and I told my husband that I quit my job, and he looked at me like, have you lost your mind? Like, how are we going to pay the mortgage? And just came out of my mouth, something bad is going to happen in the next 2 weeks. I don't know how I know, I just know.
Let's repeat the non-conformist oath. I promise to be different. I promise to be unique. I promise not to repeat things other people say.
Welcome back to Positive Blatherings, and it's been a minute or 9, and so I've decided that in 2026 I was going to focus more on this podcast because I really believe that bringing inspiring stories to my listeners is something that has been missing in my life. And I also, not only do I get to bring these stories, but I get to actually speak with these people who inspire me. And it just makes me feel better. So this is kind of a selfish podcast. I'm really kind of doing this for myself. And you're just along for the ride. So with me today, the author of the recent book that's just released, Don't Miss the Magic. Now, this person is not only the author of this inspiring book, but she's also my cousin, Meg. And I forgot to ask you, is it Meg Fitzgerald? Or
Meg Fitzgerald.
Okay, Meg Fitzgerald. And hence the name, you know. And I'm so excited because it was just like how many like coincidences have there been about us connecting or reconnecting after all these years?
There's been several things that have brought us together in the last
it's been crazy
few months.
So yeah, the first thing that happened was like I get a text from one of my clients, and she's taking a picture with you, and I'm like, what?
Oh, right.
When two worlds collide with J-Band,
right?
And who was your college
She was
roommate?
my friend in high school, my best friend in high school, and then she was my college roommate.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you guys went back to high school.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she had moved to my hometown when she would have been a sophomore, and I was a junior.
Wow. So that's J-Band from the Center for Teen Empowerment. They're a fantastic organization here in Rochester that I've been honored to work with. And one of the other gentlemen that worked there is also the brother-in-law of one of my other clients and friends. So it was kind of like a cool connection. But to suddenly see a picture of you there, and I'm like, what? And you know how when that happens when it's like something completely out of context comes in and you're just like, I don't understand what I'm looking at. How am I looking at this?
I think at the same time, or maybe right before that, she said to me, wait a minute. Are you cousins with Scott Fitzgerald? And I'm like, yes. She's like, he just did my video.
It's just so funny. And then also just to have you in Rochester was like blowing my mind. So quick backstory, like we're Long Islanders and you were what, Sayville? Is that where you grew up? And I was from Massapequa, but I was only there for like first 5 years of my life. And then we moved to Florida and then that was it. So Meg and her family were always in New York and we were in Florida. So there were years and years where we didn't see each other.
We see each other a couple times over several years.
Yeah, every once in a while and stuff like that. So the fact that that we're even, because there's a lot of people in our family that I'm not in touch with, and we have a pretty big family.
Well, that's why. I mean, we've grown exponentially. I don't even know our cousins' kids' names.
Yeah, there's too many of them. And then there's our cousins' kids have kids too. So like, I'm losing track. But you were always a little bit more in touch with the aunts and uncles than I was. Like our aunts and uncles that lived in West Palm and stuff, like you were closer to them.
Yeah, for a while. And then, I had kids and then you know how it goes. You're so busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You lose touch.
And then
their kids had kids and then,
Yep. And so speaking of kids, you went through quite a bit of a tragedy. It was in 2009?
2014.
2014. Oh, was that recent? where your son was killed, and it was a horrible accident, and we were all devastated. Your son Ryan was the same age as my youngest Abby. They were, I want to say, a month apart.
Oh, really? Yeah, he was 7 when the accident happened.
Yeah, so we really felt for you when that happened. It was devastating, but some people, when they have a tragedy like that, they can go one way with it, and then some people go another way with it. And the way that you went with it was what really got me, because it was really an inspiring turn for you, where you took all of that emotion and you tried to turn it into something positive. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did there?
Well, I mean, the first night of the accident, we were on a family vacation, so our other aunt and uncle was there with us. The first night of the accident, I thought we were in a rental property at the time with my husband's brother's family and my mother-in-law and our aunt and uncle. I just laid in bed with my other son. I had my son Josh was 9. With my husband, the 3 of us were in bed, and I was just thinking, there's no way I can face this. So I just have to end it. And I just sat there imagining how I would end it. And then, my mother would want to go too, and my brother, and I'm going along. And then you get to people, it's like, wait, they have families, they have lives. How can I do this to them? So that wasn't an option. I was just trying to solve a problem, something that is just impossible to
And you're
face.
talking end it like suicide.
End it like suicide, yeah. Like I was just imagining we'll all just take pills and we'll go to sleep and,
Right.
But I very quickly realized that that's just not an option. So I just was so terrified of like living with the lights out, And so I just thought, okay, I have to live better. I have to bring him with me. I started like imagining myself, moving to Central America and in some war-torn village and helping, or Africa or somewhere. I just thought I have to make this have some meaning and some purpose. And that's what I tried to do. Of course, you're in shock after that, so you're just kind of in survival mode for a while. But that was just my thought process right in the beginning. I just think the way you assign meaning to things is really the difference in how you experience them.
So you started a foundation in the name of your son, the Ryan Batchelder Foundation?
Yeah, we started, we got the idea maybe a couple months after he passed. My husband had the idea originally. I knew we both knew we wanted to do something. And my son loved stuffed animals. His dream was, he told me one time, I asked him what his 3 wishes were, if he could have 3 wishes. And he said one of them was to have 1 million stuffed animals. So he used to have them like surrounding him in bed every night. You couldn't even find him in the bed. So my husband had the idea, why don't we give stuffed animals to children in need that are going through a traumatic time? So we got the idea we could give them through rescue workers, hospitals, relief organizations. And I thought, well, we'll sell them in order to make the profits to be able to give them. So it was buy one little hug, give one little hug. And then we also added inspirational T-shirts and things like that. So I would have like parties at my house with my friends and make the T-shirts, and that money would go towards the organization.
Right. And one of the things that we've talked about over the years is this idea that people who we've lost stay with us and come back and give us signs that they're with us. And some people don't believe in that. I tend to believe in that. I've seen it firsthand, and you've shared plenty of stories with me.
Oh, it's real.
About many times where Ryan has come back and sent you messages. What was the first time that you noticed that? What was that first experience?
Well, it started with electronics. So, for example, it was maybe actually the very first day. The very first day, I didn't witness it, but we were at a lake house. It was a boating accident. And I was inside the house with the rescue workers talking. And my son, who was 9, and my nephew, who was 13, and my mother-in-law were out on the balcony looking out at the lake talking. And they started screaming for me to come out. And they said they saw the name Ryan in the wake of the lake. And I was open to it, but I was in shock, and I was just like, wow, really? And they're like, all of them insisting. It was there. It was perfect. It was in big capital letters. It said Ryan. So that was the first thing. And then I had some other people saying things that were happening to them. And maybe, I don't know, 3-4 days later, I'm sitting at the counter at my house, and all of a sudden his racing game is on my phone, which is next to me, but like, a couple feet away. And I'm thinking, did I hit that? Did I hit the screen and somehow that came on? So there was a few incidences like that before my skeptical mind was like, no, it couldn't be. It couldn't be. But then after so much, I started thinking, okay, I feel like this has got to be real. And then they just kept getting bigger and crazier.
And then that sort of pushed you down a path of spirituality and kind of, I don't know, I guess spirituality is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it did. I just was like searching for the meaning in everything and how the universe worked, which of course we're never fully going to have the answers to that, or at least not while we're here on Earth.
Yeah.
But actually something had happened before that opened me up. About a week and a half before Ryan died, I was at work. I worked in, as you know, a corporate environment. I had just finished a very intense project at work, and we were moving on to a merger with our competitor. And I was going to be on that project, and this vacation was planned. And I was on my way to work, and I was stopped at a stoplight, and all of a sudden I heard a voice in my head say, "Pain is coming." And it brought me back to another memory before a challenging time in my life where I had that voice that I honestly didn't give a lot of thought to at the time. I was always open to spirituality, but I really had no exposure other than to, conservative Christianity. And I feel like I was completely out of that loop. And when I had that voice in my head, there was no emotion with it at first, but the doom feeling just increased throughout the day to the point where I quit my job that day after 17 years. And
wow.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe I never told you that story. So
no,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I quit my job, and my boss was like, "Look, I'm not accepting your resignation. You just got off this very intense project. You've been under a lot of stress. You're going on vacation next week. We can talk about it when you get back."
And this was before the lake house.
This was before the accident.
Yeah.
So I went home that night and I told my husband that I quit my job, and he looked at me like, have you lost your mind? How are we going to pay the mortgage? And just came out of my mouth, something bad is going to happen in the next 2 weeks. I don't know how I know. I just know. And I didn't really think about the next 2 weeks earlier in the day. It just came out. It didn't come from me almost, it felt like. During the day when I was trying to think about why am I having this sense of doom, I thought maybe I was going to have a stroke or something because I was having a lot of bouts with high blood pressure. So I thought maybe that's what it is. And I just had this really strong sense that I have to be with the kids. I have to spend time with the kids. They're 7 and 9. I'm spending too much time at work. It was just this very intense feeling. Told my husband that when I got home. And then the rest of the time, we just got started, getting ready to go on vacation. I kind of let it go. And it wasn't thinking about it anymore. And then when we got in the car after the accident to go home, we had a 12-hour drive back to Florida. My husband reminded me that my son, Ryan, had said right around the same time, just out of nowhere, we're in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner or something, and he says, "I want to go to heaven." And I'm like, "What do you mean you want to go to heaven? Where are you getting that from?" And he's like, "Oh, I hear it's really great there." And we're like, "Where are you hearing this from?" He's like, "I don't know. Just heard it was really great there." And it was just really strange. And then my husband also confessed at the same time that the accident happened on July 17th. On July 4th, my mother was with us in the car on the way home, my mother-in-law, excuse me. And he said to his mom while we were driving after we were talking about this stuff, "Do you remember what I told you on July 4th? He was having dreams that he now refers to as premonitions. He was waking up and Ryan was dead." So we all had warnings before. So that was a lot of why I think I went down this path, because I was like, we knew there's more to this. There's more that's going on here. We're just not randomly here on this planet.
What's your explanation or who do you think the voice was that said pain is coming?
I don't know if it was, God, a guide, maybe my higher self. I kind of feel like maybe it was like another aspect of myself, my soul. now that I've kind of delved into this and talked to some friends that are mediums and whatnot, it was probably my higher self that knew, because now I believe that we, that we're eternal and that maybe we're planning, some aspect of us is kind of planning some of the key fated moments in our life to learn, to have experiences and to learn and to grow and love here on Earth in this 3D world. That's what I've come to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like this is like, part of universe school.
Yep.
And this is just one of the classes.
That's what I feel like. And when you look back on your life, and I think anyone can look back on their life and see how, like the tapestry, how all these different things came together and how we often think something, bad happened. And then we look back on it and we realize that it was a good thing that it happened. And I'm not suggesting, I'm not talking about this.
Yeah.
But you can see how things fit together after the fact. So,
So then how did you get back? Like, what was your next step? What was your next turn when you started to have the realization that, you have this higher self, this connection with greater power? What was your thought? Like, did you think, I got to do something, or were you still kind of skeptical, or?
Well, I mean, at first I was still skeptical. I was still searching, and I just really dove into spirituality, bought books, and just was absorbing it, reading all the time. And it was really my lifeline to try to stay in that place. But at the time, when you're in that first part of grief, you're just trying to get up and take a shower.
Right.
Eat food, And a friend of mine from my childhood had actually lost a child in a very crazy accident. And I hadn't talked to her in, years, since high school. And she reached out to me. And that was a weird coincidence too, because the crazy part was I was on a project at work through a third-party organization on this project was her brother-in-law. And I hadn't talked to her in years. Huh. So he heard about, the accident because we had been working together and put us in touch. And she reached out to me and said, just live in the present. And that was the thing that just stuck to me. Just like live in the present moment, just get through and at first you're like, just get through the minute, just get through the minute. And so that's how it was for several months. And then I sort of developed this, I used to call it my prescription, this routine that I did every day. And I think that this would be helpful for anybody going through any kind of life challenge. And to just, I would do breathing, some kind of meditation. I would listen to inspirational music. I created a playlist, go for walks out in nature, be in nature every day. I would read my books, which would make me, feel connected to something bigger. And then also intentionally spend time in Ryan's room or looking at pictures. Some people do the opposite when they go through something like this. They don't want to look at pictures. They don't want to be reminded. But for me, I felt like I was really actively grieving because I feel like when you stuff that, it's going to catch up to you later. So I was really being intentional about it. And I would find, for example, my dad came to visit one time and I was away from my routine. And after 3 days, I was like, I have to get back to that. So I just really dove into those practices. And I sort of lost track of what the original question that you had was.
Well, the one thing I didn't growing up, I didn't know you very we never really knew each other, right?
I always liked you a lot though. When we would see each other at family reunions and
we always had fun. There was what was my favorite quote from you from back in the day?
Oh gosh.
It was somebody's wedding. It was somebody's wedding. We
sure it wasn't mine?
No, it wasn't yours. No, you weren't married yet. I want to say it was our cousin John's wedding. Was that in the 90s? It was in
probably, the early 90s maybe.
So back when I had just gotten out of high school and I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I was going to go to the service academies, and then found out that I was colorblind and didn't want to do it, and came home and I quit. And I was 18 and my parents were going up to New York for John's wedding. I want to say it was for John's wedding, and they made me come with them, and I didn't want to go. I was like, no, I had just completely like my entire high school was about being in the military and going to the Naval Academy, and I suddenly changed my mind. And my dad was like crestfallen. He was like, "You didn't give it enough time, whatever." So I was like, I just want to stay home. I wanted to like wallow in my own misery. And they're like, "You're not staying home by yourself. You're coming to New York with us. We're going to John's wedding." I'm like, okay. So we went up there. I remember I still had like a buzz cut because I was at Fort Knox. I was basically going into the Army for 8 weeks or whatever. And there was some kind of party at somebody's house. I don't even know whose. And I think it was like your friends. It was like your college friends, or I don't know. And now it's been so long now that I can't even remember the entire situation, but you were like, "Oh, Scott, you just want to get laid."
Oh God. Well, that was random.
Because I was like, "Oh, I want to hang out." I think it was like I wanted to stay longer or whatever, because there was like some girls there that were friends or whatever, and you're like, "Oh, Scott, you just want to get laid." And I'm like, "She's not wrong. She's not wrong." But going back to what we were talking about, I always thought of you as that go-getter, like knowing that you worked in the corporate world. And I always saw you as that, like the business shark, like but you were always like you were tough. I mean, you still are tough. You're tough. You're put together. That was my impression of you all those years. And, so hearing that you, like how some people will stuff the grief and ignore it and not work through it, and you tackled it headlong. You just jumped right into it and said, "No, like this is how I'm going to take care of this." And that just makes perfect sense to me, knowing what I know about you, is that you're not going to run away from that. You may for a short time, like, because we all kind of have to acclimate to whatever's going on, but then you dove right into it and tackled it. And then also kind of, you made it work for you. Like, if you think about it, It makes you happy when you have these signs.
Definitely.
It's comforting, and that's good for you. And so you turn this thing, if you think about it, you turn this horrible tragedy into something good. You started a foundation. You got more into spirituality. You're helping people all the time, and you love to help people. So it's just like, it makes sense for me, knowing what I know about you, that you would take this and turn it into something good.
There's been a lot of gifts. Of course, you would do anything to have one more day with your son. But at the same time, I also love the connections that I've made in my life since, he's passed. It's been a rough road. It's like you're living in, it's like dual living with the times when you're in grief, and then these other times when I'm just, in the magic of the connections and the synchronicities and meeting the most beautiful people. That part's been amazing. So it's a strange kind of feeling. I don't spend any time, or very little time, I'll say. And I think this is the trap that so many people fall into that go through this. And I mean, you can't fault people because it's so hard. But I didn't spend time thinking about what if, and that's, I guess, applies to anything in life when things don't go the way we want them or the way we expect them. When you waste energy thinking about what if, it's done. You can't change it. You have to move forward. You have to take what you learn from it, what you can get from it, and you have to move forward. And I think that's the difference of like how people experience whatever the situation is, how two people can experience the exact same situation and perceive it completely differently.
Yeah. I want to go back to one word that you used in that last statement, and that was energy. And energy work is something that I've, over the last year, have started to get more into and starting to try to understand. So like a very simple explanation or example is the energy that you have when you go into whatever it is into any kind of an event or a situation or something that you have to do, the energy that you have inside when you go into that can drastically affect the outcome of that. And I know that to some degree that sounds kind of, duh, because it's like if you're going to go meet with someone and you go in with a bad attitude, the meeting's going to go poorly.
Right.
That's just the way it's going to be. But it goes deeper. It goes so deeper than that. And it can be used for even the simplest of things.
Yeah.
Your everyday life. I'm going to, there's like every once in a while, there's a meeting that I don't want to do. For whatever reason. And there's very few because I love what I do here. I love everything. But sometimes it's like, oh, that's going to be a hard job or something. And I'm not looking forward to how we're going to do this or something. And I realized that whenever I find, I stop myself and I say, well, think about the energy that you're bringing into this situation. Right. And I go, all right, you're right. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be a real challenge, but it's going to be amazing. And then sure enough, when I get into that meeting or whatever it is, it turns out to be great. It turns out to be fun. It turns out to be not a challenge or it's a challenge that helps us grow or something like that, So it's like that energy that you bring into things and for every aspect of your life. And that's something that we've had conversations about how you live your life and how you manage your energy and how you focus your energy.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you forget, you get involved in things and you stop the practices. But you were making me think of something that I became aware of with energy, earlier on in my story. I've since been divorced from my husband, but it was very difficult times after this happened. And we kind of handled it differently. And we had some communication issues prior to this. So it was very difficult after because you're going through this and you're reflecting the grief back to each other. And that's really, hard when you're just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. And I remember when we were going through it and I really wanted us to make it. I wanted us to make it for my son and for both of us. And I would... Prior to the accident, for example, I'd come home, I'd be stressed out after work and, I'd see stuff on the counter and the mess and maybe I'd make a sigh or whatever, And then my husband would instantly get triggered because he was annoyed because he just already automatically knew that I was annoyed and whatever.
My wife knows all about the sigh.
So, So then I was like, okay, and this is even before the accident. I'm like, okay, because I wanted, I was working on the relationship. I started realizing I think I learned quickly. So I was thinking, I can't change our dynamic. I can't change him. He doesn't care if the house is clean. I can only change myself. So I got to maybe not have this job and work less hours. And I need to figure out strategies that I can work around that fact that he doesn't care about this because I do. So I started coming home and I'm like, I'm really being conscious. I'm not going to show him my sigh when I see the mess. I'm going to change. But it was still like the reaction sometimes from him would be the same. I'm like, I didn't say a word. Why is he upset? Well, after the accident, I had this mentor, spiritual friend that was like my mentor. We kind of mentored each other on different things. And he used to say, send love to every situation. And at first, I wasn't quite sure what he meant, send love to every situation. And of course, when we have people in our lives that we love or friends, when they're maybe not behaving in the best way, you think about, well, they had this experience in life and you can feel compassion and empathy for them and maybe not take things personally or whatever. So I was doing that already, but I took it to a next level after he was saying this to me. So every time I would have to have an interaction with my husband. That sounded terrible, have to. But when I was having an interaction with my husband, I started really I'm going to just focus on my love for him, all the stuff I love. I'm not going to put any attention into any of the other stuff that we have. I'm not going to worry about, our communication on different things or whether the house is a mess. I'm just going to focus on the love that I have for him. And when I swear, my words were not different when I would come home from work. My body language was not different because I really was being conscious of it for a while prior to that. it was the energy that was different. Nothing else on the outside. And I could see he started to respond differently to it. And that was when I'd heard about the energy from people in this world. I was in this world now, but I really witnessed it. That was the thing that really made me see the difference, was his reaction to everything was exactly the same, except for kind of what I was meditating on, my energy prior to our interactions. And it made a difference.
Amazing.
I didn't say that the marriage was, we still landed in the same place, but it was
probably could have been worse.
Amicable. Yes. It wasn't a train wreck. Like other people have divorces that are a train wreck.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would be so great if more people could understand those practices and understand that whole idea of energy.
I feel like, I see such a change just in the time that from when the accident happened. And I know some of it's just because I wasn't in the world and I wasn't aware, but I just feel like all this stuff is becoming so much more mainstream. So much has changed in the past 10 years and people are becoming more aware. I mean, it's so much of it's just pour awareness into yourself. Be self-aware of yourself and the energy you're bringing to things. And it changes the interactions with people around you.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And, I just had some new clients start here. Shout out to the Brow Divas. It's Deborah and Deanna. They have a makeup store and they do eyebrows and stuff, and they're very successful entrepreneurs, and they're twins. They're identical twins.
Oh, that's cool.
And they came to me to do a podcast, and we were having our meeting, and this was just like a couple of weeks ago. They started right away, and we were having our meeting, and they started talking about energy and manifestation and intentions, and I was like, we have to work together. I'm like, that's just it. You're doing your podcast here because I'm like, you're my kind of people.
Right.
Because these are the kind of people that I want to be around. These are the kind of people that I want to learn from. I want to understand, because like you said, you forget. I forget all the time, and I get wrapped up in my day-to-day BS, and I'm like, and then I realize that, like, okay, that's how I spiral. That's how I get off track. That's how I end up in a place that I don't want to be, and things get dark and things get uncomfortable. And then your interactions with other people that you love start to get that way because your energy going into everything is turning bad.
Yep.
And I think if I could think of one practice that, or I don't know what you'd call it, but one thing that I've learned in this past year, I've been working with a business coach who's also been kind of like a spiritual coach as well. And that's just the self, what was the term? Like self-realization? No. When you understand
Self-awareness?
Thank you.
Oh. I thought it was something else.
No. I just couldn't think of the word awareness. Self-awareness. Like,
it's all about self-awareness.
This last year has been about self-awareness, and I'm getting better at catching myself when I see that I am getting angry or I'm getting, and it's just the same thing when I get home. I get home and I go, oh, the kitchen is a mess. And I go to throw something out and the garbage is piling over. I'm like, can anyone please put the garbage out? And I realized that doesn't do anything. It just makes everybody upset.
Yeah. But there is tricks to figuring out how to, you don't want to stuff the feelings, right? So that doesn't work either. So you really have to kind of like work on, like in that example that you just gave, like before you get out of the car, really think about like, I'm not going to get upset about it if I really want to solve this, or if we want to figure out how we can all manage better in the house. We got to come up with a strategy. Like you got to really be conscious about that stuff so that you're not reacting to it in the moment, because that's where it just all unravels quickly. Yeah.
And it's so true. So, I mean, it just goes back to, being self-aware and then applying good energy.
Yep.
It's like those two things.
Yeah.
It's really transformed my year.
Yeah. And being intentional. It's like being conscious about like, okay, I have this, I don't even want to say issue because I want to keep it positive, but I have an interaction that I would like to be more positive with this person. How can I really be intentional about making that happen rather than we just go through these patterns that we've developed and we just go back and forth triggering each other,
Yeah.
doing the same thing over and over
Yeah.
again and expecting different results.
Yeah, it's like a terrible spiritual like cricket game or something or a tennis match. Let's talk about the book. I want to talk about Don't Miss the Magic. And you've used that word more than once in this conversation. So tell me about where the book came from and what's about and all that.
Well, it's a lot
stuff.
of what we're talking about right now. It's the story. So it starts with the story of the accident and a lot of what we talked about already, and then just basically what I learned, how I navigated it, what lessons I learned, just a lot of stories about the magical things that happened. And I do feel like when you're, like you mentioned, like you want to do this and be around people that have the positive energy, that you'll attract them when you're in that mode. It's like you become a magnet to that. And when you stay with those type of people that are in that, it's just life is so much better and more magical. That's how it felt to me.
Would you classify it as a memoir or is it just more of a partial memoir and partial?
It's a memoir, but there's
guide.
lessons in there. Yeah, it's probably a little of both. Yeah, I'm not sure what the publishers would call it.
That's their job.
Yeah,
but see, and that's kind of like maybe that's what you're supposed to do. You know, like why the age-old question, why are we here? What's this all about? You know, it's different for everyone. Everyone has a different thing that they're probably here to do. I think a lot of people don't know what that is and maybe never find out for whatever reason. And then some of us, through tragedy or through serendipity or whatever, discover what it is that we're here to do.
I was pushed. A spirit basically told me I was writing a book. I didn't have a choice because let me tell you, I never thought that I would be writing a book. That was like the worst thing when I was in school was if someone gave me like a creative writing assignment, like to read that. What happened was I actually went to my first medium, and at the end of the reading, he goes, "Oh, you're going to write a book." I barely spoke to the guy. I mean, I don't even think I really answered questions. He must have thought I was the worst client because I wasn't giving him any feedback really, but he was really spot on. We were over the phone actually. And towards the end, he's like, "Oh yeah, you're going to write a book. It's going to be like, Wayne Dyer." Or, I didn't even know who Wayne Dyer was. He was all about, the power of your thoughts. It was but when I looked him up after I got off the phone, I'm like, wow, that's pretty
awesome.
Well, that was what was pretty crazy was I was always very aware of the power of my thoughts. And I used to joke prior to all of this when I was like a teenager that I was great at rationalizing anything because no matter what bad happened, I would always just look for the silver lining. I mean, I'm a Sagittarius. It probably has something to do with that too. But I just would always, turn it around and whatever. So I think that was obviously one of the things that helped me a lot during this. But so he said, "You're going to write a book like this, whatever." And I thought to myself, oh, for goodness sake, that's not going to happen. But then when I looked up who Wayne Dyer was, I was like, well, that was really interesting because this guy doesn't know me at all. And like, I totally seem to align with this guy. So I started reading his book. But that same afternoon, I had been reading a book called Love Never Dies by someone named Sandy Goodman who had lost her son. And at the end of each chapter, she would put a page or two in italics, which she said was her son that she was channeling. And she joked and she said, I don't know if I'm really channeling him, but I think this is what he would say. So when I finished the reading, I went back and I opened up the book and I kind of flipped to a page, not where I had left off. And I landed on one of these italicized pages further into the book. And my eyes just caught this line that said, I pushed my mother to write this book. And if she doesn't write it, if it doesn't get in the hands of everyone that needs to read it, someone else is going to come along and write the book. And I thought, okay. And then it just kind of kept going from there. It took me, I just finished and it took me, I've been doing this since I think I started pulling together Facebook posts and things I had done right after the accident, maybe a month or two after that had happened, and started turning it into a book maybe a year later. So we're going on year 12. So, I guess we're after year 12. So, I've been writing this book for 11 plus 12 years. Finally, it just kept putting it down. And
what chapter are you on?
No, it's done now. It's done now, but it might get like some revisions.
Well,
it was hard to know where to end it.
Yeah.
When something like this happens and you want to find meaning to it, you're waiting for like some big thing's going to happen. There's going to be some big, and regular life happened. COVID happened. That's in the book because I was thinking like this leading to something.
Right.
Finding my purpose. That's,
big old pause button was pressed.
Yeah. And, there was many lessons in that. And I felt like I'm very well equipped to go into this. I learned how to be alone during COVID. And that was really good. I learned how to really love myself and be good with myself during that time. So that was good. But then there's a lot of other stuff happened that we haven't gotten into yet with the lawsuit and everything that got delayed because of that. So I also went into a very bad spiral during that time, which I think a lot of people that I was following in the spiritual world kind of took a dip during that time also, people that are teachers. So, we're all human. We're all here. We all go through that. Even the people you think have it most together.
Yeah.
I was very frustrated with myself because I'm like, I know what I need to do. I know the practices I need to do, and I wasn't doing it. And then I started picking it back up, and little by little, my energy started increasing, and I pulled myself out of it. But one thing I remember thinking right in the beginning of my grief that I knew at the time, fast forward to COVID, was when you let yourself spiral down, it's so much harder to pull yourself back up. And that was one of the things when the accident first happened that I was very conscious of. I used to like to party on the weekends and whatnot. I didn't drink anything for 6 months when the accident happened because I just knew somehow instinctually, maybe a past life, that was not going to be good for me, So, but fast forward to COVID, I let myself spiral a little bit. I picked myself up before it got too bad. But, I'm sure there was lessons in there. But that detracted from the book. But then I'm like, no, you know what? This is part of it. I got to put this in the book.
Yeah. That's interesting. So. I didn't think about that, but it makes perfect sense. When you do spiral down, the climb is much harder. And if you think about it, it's kind of like when you're, on a fitness journey or whatever, and you're working out every day, and then you let 6 months go by and you don't work out, and then you try to work out again. It's like, oh crap, right. I'm like nowhere near where I was before.
Yeah.
And it's so much harder to get back to where you were. It's same with the spiritual stuff.
Yeah, it's like the same thing with it's being self-aware and being conscious and living with intention. Because the further you allow, it's being aware of it. It's like if I allow myself to go one more day without doing this practice, to your same point of exercise, it's just harder. Every day I don't do it, it's going to be harder. So I reminded myself of that finally. And
so where's your next stop on the book tour? You stopped here at ROC Vox in
you know how excited
Rochester,
I am
New
about
York.
doing these kind of things, Scott.
If you'd like to book Meg Fitzgerald to be on your podcast, reach out to me because she's not going to answer your email. I'll do an intro. So what's next? What's you got the book. Is there anything else that you'd like to do, kind of along those lines that you were thinking about?
I mean, well, I would like to, probably do some speaking on the book. I've done some speaking in small environments. I like the small environments right now.
Living rooms?
Living rooms,
dens.
Retreats, things like that. Just to share the story, just because I'm not really comfortable doing that, but I get a lot of people wanting to talk to me. So.
You also weren't comfortable about writing a book.
I wasn't comfortable about, yes, I have to get out of my comfort zone. Yes, I'm trying to challenge myself for sure. I do shockingly think that I want to write another book for young people, adolescents. When I was starting this book, I was thinking, I really wish I had a book for Josh, because there's not a lot of books for that teenage age stuff about this kind of thing we're talking about.
I mean, the only stuff that really that for kids is really, really religious stuff.
Yeah.
It's not spiritual
There's some, but not much. There's some good ones for the younger kids. Well, actually, some of the ones for the younger kids I like too. But Neil Donald Walsh wrote a book that I think is really good. I can't think of the name of it right now, and I think Wayne Dyer.
He's really cool.
Yeah,
he's a funny guy.
I like him.
I remember seeing one of his talks, and he's kind of out there, but you love it.
Yeah, I went to I went to Celebrate Your Life. It was I had been reading his book, and I had been wanting. This was early on in my grief, and at first I was thinking, I'll go to like a conference on near-death experiences because I was really obsessed with that stuff. That helped me so much, and just nothing ever felt right. I was really trying to like listen to my intuition, and then one day I was reading his books, and I saw a conference called Celebrate Your Life, and he was a speaker. It ended up he wasn't there because he had a heart attack right before that. He's okay, but he didn't actually go. But when I went to that, I'm going to take you on another story now. But there were 3 mediums that were there for the keynote. One of them was Lisa Williams. So I'm in this audience with 1,500 people. I was there with my friend Kate, who's from upstate New York, also, and her brother came through. I met her because her brother died, and I was friends with her brother in college. A lot of strange coincidences in my life. So her brother came through, and then someone else came through, and that was pretty wild because I had been praying to him on the way to the event to come through and give her a message, and he did. And there's some funny stuff, but it actually won't make context. It will be too long of a story to give context to it, so I won't go there. But then she brought through somebody else, and at the end she said, okay, he's bringing through a child, but I don't think he belongs to you. So, she's on the stage and we're all in the audience. And so she starts describing he's about 7 years old, and, my friend's hitting me, and somebody we had just met is, they're both elbowing me. It's, raise your hand because they'll run over a mic to you. And I didn't. I waited a little bit longer, and she said a few more things. I'm like, okay, that's got to be Ryan. So I raised my hand, and she comes over. And I mean, it was one thing after another, exactly right. I had already been to a couple mediums before that, so I knew it was real. But this was like wild magic with all these people there. And I mean, one of the first things she said was he died in a boat propeller accident. It was pretty horrific. And one of the first things she said was, he needs you to know that it didn't hurt. And I hadn't said how he died. And so like we're all crying, the whole audience is crying. But the coolest thing that she brought up was, she's like, why am I hearing the word crocodiles? And I said, oh, well, today's the Florida State Gator game. And we were big Florida State fans in my house. And we used to joke and call the Gators the crocodiles. And she said, well, yeah, but he's also saying you have his shoes. Well, backstory. Were
you wearing Crocs?
Well, backstory. I should have given the backstory first. Backstory is he had these little Florida State Crocs shoes. And the day after the accident, his brother Josh saw them kind of paired perfectly at the bottom of the stairs and just collapsed in hysteria when he saw his shoes. And it was gut-wrenching for me. Well, I picked up the shoes, put them in my bag, brought them home, put them in my closet. They're still in my closet. I still look at them all the time, but I used to look at them every day before I leave my closet. I would look at his shoes. And I also had a pair of his little green boxer briefs in my closet that I would look at every day. Well, before going to the conference, a couple days before the story I'm telling you, I couldn't find his green boxer briefs because when I was packing for the trip, they got like lost in my piles of clothes in my closet. And I had to like talk myself down from my anxiety attack that I was having. Like, you're going to miss your flight. You need to leave now. You'll find the underwear when you get home. So here I am now, fast forward 2 days later at this thing in front of 1,500 people. And she goes, no, but he's saying you have his shoes. And then she says, I feel a little weird saying this, but he's showing me himself running around on the stage in his underwear. And I just like lost it. I'm like, you can't make this up.
Right?
You can't make this up. So I had now 1,500 new friends immediately. I mean, even the presenters the next day were talking about, were you guys at the Lisa Williams thing last night? That was amazing. And I'm raising my hand. I was in that one. Yeah. That was me. Yeah, it was cool.
Wow.
It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think I used to be kind of, I don't know if I was never fully a skeptic. It was always just that questioning, and, but the more stories that I hear from, people like you and other people that I come in contact with here at the studio, there's just no doubt in my mind. And then I got into Brian Weiss books, the past lives regression and stuff like that. And I was kind of obsessed with it for a little while. Like I listened to all of his audiobooks. Like I just went one after the other.
You just gave me a good idea. I'm going to get some of his audiobooks. I did Many Lives, Many Masters.
Yeah. And actually it's kind of interesting that a friend of mine sent me that. He said, I'm going to send you this book. And he was doing a podcast with me. And it was a guy that I used to work with when I worked on the cruise line. And he was off doing amazing things. Like he used to be the vice president of entertainment for the Vegas Golden Knights when they were an expansion hockey team. He was the first guy to like really make the show in the the hockey game. Like he does all that kind of stuff. And I had him on my podcast, and he's like, I'm going to send you this book. And he just sent it to me. He's like, and then you read it whenever you want, if not, whatever. He's like, and then give it to somebody else. And it took me a long time to read the book because I don't read books anymore. I listen to audiobooks because when I try to read, I fall asleep. And so it takes a lot for me to actually read a physical book. But I finally made myself read it. And I think I kept seeing it on my nightstand, and then it would go away, and then I would see it again somewhere else, and I'm like, I got to read this book. And so I finally read the book, and it was a hard slog. It's a little tiny book. It took not very long, but I would start reading it, and then I would fall asleep, and then I was like, all right, so maybe I'm doing this wrong. Instead of laying down before bed to read the book, maybe take time in the middle of the day to read the book where you're more awake. So that's what I did, and I ended up getting through the book, and I was hooked. I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And then I started looking for more of his books, and I found more of the audiobooks and started listening to them, which he narrates them all. So you hear his voice, and he tells all these stories. And it really got me interested in just the idea of a greater consciousness, this the masters, the people, the beings that are there that know all. Some people might say it's God or whatever, the universe, but that finding the connection to there, that all the answers and everything is there. It's almost kind of more than my human brain can. I
have so many stories you're triggering off right now that I want to tell you. I did go to Brian Weiss. Had an event in Fort Lauderdale. And this was the first spiritual event I went to, and that Celebrate Your Life story I just told you was like shortly after this. So I went to Brian Weiss with my husband, and they do meditation. You try to get to a past life. And I had an experience. It wasn't really a past life. It was actually a little girl in a pink tutu twirling in my back patio. Did I tell you this story before? And she has like pin straight black hair, a little clip. Like I can picture her perfectly. She was maybe like, not two. And so I thought, okay, I had a miscarriage. Maybe this was the little girl that I miscarried. And it was like as if somebody was holding up an iPad to my face is how I saw it. And fast forward, okay, at that Celebrate Your Life conference, I meet this woman named Tina Clanaris Robinson. She's amazing. She's writing an amazing book right now. She's an artist, and a lot of people in this world know who she is. We became besties, and I went to the conference 2 years later, the Celebrate Your Life conference, with her. She would do her art. She was one of the vendors there, so I went as her helper. But they had the same three mediums for the entertainment on Saturday night. So I went into the entertainment. I ran into Lisa Williams in the hallway, and I said, I don't know if you remember me, but you did the most amazing reading for me 2 years ago. And she did remember. And I thought, why did I do that? Because I really want Ryan to come through again. I'm being selfish. I want him to come through. And now she won't bring him through. But I had been praying Tina had lost a child during childbirth. So I was praying, her name is Mia. So I was praying to Ryan, bring through Mia. I don't know why. I just feel like Ryan's got extra special power. So Tina decides to stay at her table, not to come into the show. So I'm thinking, I saw Lisa in the hallway. Now she's not going to come through. Then all of a sudden I had like this knowing that I get sometimes. Oh my gosh, Ryan's coming. So I text my friend. I go, you got to get in here. And she knows me. So she's like, I guess I better get in there quick. So she came in, and sure enough, Lisa Williams says, I have this boy here. I know who he is because he's in his Superman costume, which is a whole nother thing, which I knew. He had a cape on. I knew that's something she didn't know that I knew, that like that was him for sure. And she says he's here with he's got a little girl with him, and he's got like actually a whole bunch of kids with him. And she said a couple things. She goes, but I don't really feel like the reading's for you. And I knew that. And so they ran me the mic, and I talked for a second. I handed it to Tina because I knew that it was her daughter. And sure enough, it was. And she says, she's spinning around in a little pink tutu. And it hit me that it was Tina's daughter that I saw in my meditation before. And then I had to look up exactly the dates of the Brian Weiss conference, because it was a couple years before, to realize that it was before I had met Tina. But the little girl looked exactly like her son, Thomas, who I since had met.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I was freaking out. She's getting the reading. I'm like beside myself. My head is exploding, while she's getting the reading, because I want to tell her so badly. I had to wait. But yeah, it was pretty wild.
Wow.
So lots of crazy stuff is happening.
That's, you know what? That's the magic.
Exactly.
That's the magic. And don't you dare miss the magic. This has been really awesome, and we could probably do 25 episodes on all these stories, which may be something to think about, because I think this is the kind of stuff that people need to hear. These are the stories that people need to hear more often, and some people don't ever in their lifetime come in contact with this kind of thing, and maybe that's good, because then they haven't had any tragedy or anything like that. But at the same time, I feel like it's, you go through these things, but it brings you closer to the source of the power. And at the end of the day, it's all for the better.
But how great would it be? How great would it be if you could get there without having to go through the tragedy?
Oh, sure.
I mean, I wish everyone could know this, because everything in life would be so much easier if you knew that this is just one life. It's I kind of think of it as a game to an extent, we're sort of just in a game. How do you win? You love, you don't dwell on negative stuff. You try to live in the present, have a good time, love each other, be good to people. That's how you win the game. And it's just, when you have that perspective, life is completely different. Don't sweat the small stuff. I couldn't
have thought of a better way to end this conversation with what you just said, because that's exactly how I feel. I'm beside myself, the fact that you're sitting here, 3 minutes from my house where I live. Nobody besides my immediate family has ever been, here, since I moved to Rochester in 2007. So no one outside of the greater Fitzgerald family has ever been here. So this is super, super cool. It's
super cool for me to see you in your element. I love it.
Two worlds colliding. It's like my past life is here with my current life. But you're awesome. You have affected so many people, and you continue to do so. Me as well. And I'm grateful for you, and I'm so glad that you were able to come here and do this and get out of your comfort zone.
I'm so grateful for you, and if it wasn't you, I probably wouldn't do it.
Right. You're like, all right, you're my cousin. I'll do it. Fine. But do you have anything set up for the book, or do you want to? We can put that in later.
Yeah, we'll put that in later. It'll be on Amazon.
All right. So you can find the book Don't Miss the Magic on Amazon and probably other fine featured booksellers, and we'll put all the information in the show notes. And on the screen there, you can see everything you need to know to find out more about my beautiful cousin Meg and all the cool things that she's doing. Make sure you pick up the book. I'm sure there's going to be an audiobook coming soon. And maybe I can arm wrestle her into actually doing the audiobook herself and not using someone else's voice, because it's got to come from you. It's got to be your voice. But that's it for another episode of Positive Blatherings. It's so good to be back doing this again, and we look forward to more. We'll catch you next time.